Your Steve Jones Show podcast is loading now. The Steve Jones Show podcast is sponsored by Sunbury Motors, North 4th Street in Sunbury, and Sunbury Motors Kia, routes 11 and 15 in Hummel's Wharf.
A lot of privileges come with this job, and one of them is the ability to talk with a guy like Gerry Dulac. My friend, welcome back. Great to have you with us.
Steve, always a treat to be with you, and I love when I'm waiting for you. I get the Sunbury Motors read. It reminds me of when I'm doing the weekly golf show, I have to come out and do my TaylorMade read and Roy Toyota read. it's part of the job, but it kind of like gets me all set for the interview.
There you go. Perfect. I'm glad. So Cam Smith is a guy that cut back on the beer, and he looks different now than he did a couple of years ago. And you and I have talked about him as a terrific player, going back to the players. What kind of clutch putter has this guy become over the past year?
It's funny, Steve. He kind of looks like an auto mechanic from Doylestown or something, doesn't he? With that mullet, and he got that kind of 1970s mustache going on, which you can barely see because it's blonde. But he's a good kid. He's a terrific player. His agent is a friend of mine. He's a Pittsburgh guy, Bud Martin. And so, Bud has told me about Cam for years. And to see him, win the Players, he's just a tremendous putter, a tremendous short game. Good ball striker. Sometimes can get a little crooked with the driver, but plays smart. We saw him not finish off some events early in the year, including the Olympics. Last year, we had chances to win, and he kind of made some mistakes, like on 18. He made bad decisions. Mm-hmm. But, he didn't do that at the Players, and when he starts, rolling the potato like he did, and let's face it, that was the difference. Rory McIlroy hits all 18 greens. He doesn't three-putt, and he doesn't find a bunker in the final round, and he loses because he got steamrolled by a guy who shot 64 because he took only 29 putts. He did what Rory did the day before, and Rory did what Cam Smith did the day before. Cam made him on the last day like Rory did on Saturday, and Rory missed him on Sunday like Cam did on Saturday. And, it was inch after edge after edge with Rory, and he just couldn't get it to drop. And that big time, and I was, when he was asked a question afterward, Cam Smith, which moment, what was the key moment of the match or of the round? And I go, that's easy, the putt at 17. And he said,
yep.
The putt at 17. To save par there and make that 18-footer or whatever it was. Otherwise he goes there with, tied for the lead. Now, as it turns out, he's going to birdie, but you don't know that. But it's a whole different ball game when you're going to 18 with a one-shot lead, and it's a birdie hole. And then, of course, Rory misses it by inches at 17, and that was the difference. And so I thought Rory played very well. I heard Brandel Chambly say afterward, it wasn't the putting; it was he says he just didn't hit his irons close enough. Well, first of all, that's baloney, and I'm a big Brandel Chambly fan.
Yep.
But second of all they talked about all week was you're going to have 40, 50, 60, 70-foot putts at St. Andrews because you just can't, because the greens are so big and you just can't get to some of those pins. Well, there aren't a lot of 4 and 6 and 8-foot putts at St. Andrews. So to criticize Rory and say he just didn't have enough of those 4, 6, and 8-footers, it's kind of tough to get those at St. Andrews. It's who makes the 12, 15, 18-footers or the 25 or 30-footers, and that was the difference. Rory putted wonderfully, except he just didn't put the ball in the hole. He just kept burning edges and leaving it right in the heart, and he just couldn't get it to go in. And it's too bad. Because I would have really liked to have seen Rory win. Cam Smith, like I said, deserving champ. He's a good guy. But I think all of Scotland and half of everybody else wanted to see Rory win.
Yeah, I agree with that. And it's interesting because the third shot that Smith hit on the road hole was in the only spot he could hit it to have a chance at par. That was the only spot he could hit it to have a chance at par. And then he hit it there, and then he rolled in the putt to make a payoff. That's exactly right. That was the phenomenal part of it.
Steve, I always say, just real quickly, people ask, when they play at Pebble Beach, or that 8th hole at Pebble Beach, I say it's the greatest hole in American golf, and it's the second greatest hole in the world. And people always say, what's number one? I go, that's easy. The road hole at St. Andrews, 17. Yeah. It's just that it has so much character. It has so much peril. It's so difficult. And, Tommy Nakajima, years ago, they called that the road hole bunker, just left of the green, the one right in front. Mm-hmm. But the kind of the second name for that is the Sands of Nakajima, because years ago, Tommy Nakajima was on that green in 2. He putted up the left side. It took the slope into the bunker. It took him 7 to get out. He made 11, and he was on the green in 2. And it's just, and with that road there and then the wall there, there's just so many pratfalls awaiting the player. And I just think, your tee ball has to go over the O in course, in the old course hotel sign. Mm-hmm. I think it's tremendous. I just love the hole.
What does it tell you about how difficult this sport is, that you can have the year Rory McIlroy has had and not win a major?
I know, and he won. He won the Canadian Open, and you're right. I mean, you look, and even you look at Jordan Spieth with a lot of. I know he missed the cut though at the Masters, but you look at a lot of the top 10s he's had, and yet he isn't even. I don't want to say he's not in contention, but he's in the top 10. And you look at what Rory's done, all those top 5s. Okay, I know he kind of backdoored it at the Masters, finishing second. But you put yourself, you still finish second because you have yourself hanging around the lead to some extent, and hanging around the top of the leaderboard. And and here's a guy who hasn't won a major in 8 years. And when he won at Kiawah in 14, I mean, that was his 4th one, and everybody thought, the Masters is just sitting there waiting for him, and he hasn't been able to do it there, and he hasn't won another one. And when you think it was kind of like Tiger's drought. And I know Tiger, though, had some physical issues, of course, as we all know. But Tiger went from the U.S. Open in 08 to that Masters win in 19. And, people forgot how many years it had been since he won a major tournament, Mm-hmm. And it was even longer for a Masters, when everybody thought, he was going to walk his way to Jack's record, which I never thought he would. But he had that 11-year drought. And here's Rory's now, on 8 years. And nobody would have thought that when he was 24 or 25, whatever he was, after he won his 4th major.
Yeah, no question. I mean, and again, you look at 1 year, Ricky Fowler finished in the top 5 of all 4 majors, didn't win them. Right. McIlroy, who is a cut above, I mean, let's face it, did we think Valhalla was going to be his last major? Right.
I mean, you look at Scotty Scheffler, too. Now, he tailed off on Sunday. I think he shot 74. But there he was again, after going 1, 2, and 3 in the majors. And there he was again, right in the hunt. And, he's just, it's shown that he could play any type of golf course. But he just, he didn't play so well on Sunday. But otherwise, he was right there again. When you look at guys who have just been consistently good all year in the big tournaments.
So let's, if you don't mind, I want to shift gears, because Steeler camp starts a week from Thursday down in Latrobe.
Actually, a week today, Steve, is when they report, because I'll be heading up there. But yes, go ahead.
Yes. So, but this is not a Steeler topic, but it relates to the Steelers because they'll have to play the Browns. We're waiting on what Sue Robinson wants to do with Deshaun Watson. As you have looked at it, and again, Watson was not indicted when the case was brought before a grand jury, but she has to make a decision. In the end, what do you think they might do with Watson?
Well, the Browns have just mishandled this whole situation from the get-go. They got painted, when they brought, I'll just back up real quickly, they brought Deshaun Watson in, they courted him over Baker Mayfield, and Deshaun Watson left. Well, now Jimmy Haslam has egg on his face. Now he has no other options except to offer him a fully guaranteed $234 million contract, which, of course, just riled and upset the remainder of the owners in the National Football League by handing out that kind of contract. So he had to do that now at that point to save face, because he's already alienated Baker Mayfield. Then, of course, they have to, they're going to get rid of Baker Mayfield. They're going to pay half his salary. They got a 5th-round pick for a number 1 overall choice. And so the whole thing's been mishandled, and you're doing all that for a guy who you're not even sure he's going to be able to play. Now, some of the things that I read, they talk about the language of the complaints and the language in the personal conduct policy, and how much does Deshaun Watson violate that? Well, when you look at the number of cases, the civil cases that were against him, and I know they've been settled, but I don't, with money, that does not preclude the possibility or exonerate him from his behavior. And he sat out last year. I don't know if they'll look at that as time served or what. Everybody's waiting to see what will happen. The longer it goes on, the more likely you would think that it's going to be less than a year. But to me, from everything you've read and heard, and the Browns, that was the other thing. They didn't even vet the other side. They talked to Deshaun Watson. They didn't even bother talking to the women who sued him and the attorneys who brought the suit. They never interviewed any of those people. They just interviewed and vetted Deshaun Watson's people. Well, quite naturally, what do you think they're going to say? So they were there was no due diligence. They didn't do responsibly what they should have done, which I think, let's face it, any investigative journalist would have done, which is what investigative journalists did do. So yeah. I still think, Steve, it should be a year, but like I said, the way between the things you read and the fact it kind of drags on a little bit, you start to think it's maybe going to be less than that.
Yeah, and again, what does the collective bargaining agreement, how does that enter into what they can and can't do? All right, and that's where you talk about the contract and the moral, and essentially a morals clause in the contract.
Right.
Then the next part is no Heinz.
The whole town is up in arms, Steve.
No.
You would have thought the Rooneys sold the team.
Yeah, I know. And what's interesting, though, is I guess the other owners were never crazy about it because part of it was the Heinz red zone part of it, and that's supposed to be a valuable part of whatever contract. It was kind of a sweetheart deal. But you're right. So in that town, is anybody even going to call that stadium by its name?
Probably not. They're probably still going to call it Heinz Field. I think it took people a while to stop calling the PPG Paints Arena. Stop calling the old Civic Arena that, and when it was PPG Paints Arena. But this is not a Pittsburgh company. But let me say this too, Steve, is that Heinz had a sweetheart deal before, 20 years, $57 million, and of course the 57 plays into their 57 varieties.
Yeah.
And so we all know that. And so it was like a perfect fit. But look, all you got to do is look around. As well as I, the sports climate has changed dramatically financially. It is big, big money. And I was told by the people who know that the deal was $150 million over 15 years. And then so after this deal was announced, Steve, Heinz comes out with a statement effectively saying, we really wanted to stay with the Steelers, but essentially we were outbid. Well, Steve, their offer was so embarrassingly and ridiculously low for the climate today that they weren't even being considered. There was no bidding. They were blown away, by what Acrisure was coming up with. And if you're the Steelers, so now all the people who complain about Heinz Field, whatever it is they complain about, whether the aisles are too narrow or the refreshments, I don't know what they complain about, but you hear people say, I don't like Heinz Field. Well, now you're getting this company to come in to invest all this money, so maybe there's going to be major improvements or major steps done to make it even a better venue. And yet people are just going to complain because it's not Heinz. Well, here's the other thing, too, Steve. I didn't see any other Pittsburgh company stepping up and coming up with an offer. I'm not saying there weren't any, but I'm not aware of any. And so, I mean, what were they going to do? Take Heinz's ridiculously low offer and say, okay, we're going to do that because Heinz is Heinz. Well, Steve, Heinz isn't even a Pittsburgh company anymore. The parent company is a South American investment firm, I believe. So they're not even a Pittsburgh company anymore. What I thought the Steelers might do, though, and I thought they should do, but who am I to say? I thought what they would do is they would call it Rooney Field at Acrisure Stadium, just like just like they did it in Denver, where it was Invesco Field at Mile High Stadium, something like that. I thought that was a plausible way to keep everybody happy, and who knows? Maybe they'll still do something like that. But just look at the world, Steve. It's the sports world. It's all about financial stability and growth. And you can't fault the Steelers for doing what they did. It's something they had to do, especially because who else was stepping forward? Nobody.
Yeah, 19 days ago, USC and UCLA became part of the Big Ten. All right,
yeah,
so
how about that? Right.
I mean, but it's because of money. If UCLA is losing, if UCLA is $102 million in the red, and this is the solution to get out of it, what do you do?
That's exactly right. I mean, and so there's people who want to complain, and probably the people who are complaining too are the people who probably don't even go to the stadium.
Right.
But that that's natural. You expect it, but once you look at the reality of it, and okay, yeah, it's not the simplest name, Acrisure Stadium, but they already have PNC Park, they already have PPG Paints Arena. I didn't see Allegheny Health Network or anybody like that stepping up and wanting the naming rights. So, like I said, I don't fault the Steelers at all. It's a great move for them, even though some of the fans are a little upset. And you know what, Steve? They want to call it Heinz Field? Call it Heinz Field. What does it matter?
That's right.
Call it whatever you want.
Right. In private, you can say, hey, I need directions to Heinz Field. They'll tell you. You're good.
That's exactly right.
My friend, it's always great to talk with you. Thanks so much for your valuable time.
Absolutely. I always enjoy the golf talk and the Steeler talk. And, I will tell you, I'm a little disappointed that the whiteout game is Minnesota, that it's not Ohio State, but I don't make those decisions, unfortunately.
And you're talking to somebody that doesn't either. So
That's right. Well, I hope to see you soon, my friend.
Same here, Gerry. Thanks so much.
See you, Steve. Bye now.